Hey, welcome back, everyone. It's Andrew here, and we have some massive changes being proposed in Congress that will affect different retirement programs. We also have some massive changes that we're hoping get done when it comes to Social Security benefits, as the pricing and purchasing power of Social Security benefits has been eroding over the last 10 years. So, we're going to discuss all of this in this video. What are the changes that Congress is proposing? How could that affect your retirement? And what further changes would we want Congress to put in place in order to bolster Social Security benefits? We're also going to have a quick update from President Zelensky. If you guys watched yesterday's show, go ahead and watch that show if you haven't. But we touched on the fact that Congress is approving another $40 billion in this spending bill to give more funds to Ukraine. And that's fine, but we need to make sure we're putting at least the same amount of funding, quite frankly, more, to make sure we're protecting and bolstering all of these different retirement programs, right? 401ks, Social Security benefits, SSI, SSDI, things like that. So, in our previous show, we covered the fact that basically $100 billion dollars over the span of 2 years is being allocated to Ukraine. And again, that's fine, but we need to make sure we're allocating at least that same amount for retirement programs as well. And I want to play this clip. We're going to play this later in the show from Zelensky. Apparently, it was a very, poignant speech he gave when he addressed Congress. So we're going to show that really quickly later in today's show. And funny enough, he immediately told Biden, it's being reported, that they want more. And again, that's fine. But if Congress is going to be giving more to other countries, they better take care of retirement programs first as well. With that said, folks, let's jump into the details. As always, please like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, don't forget to get your free stocks. It's completely free if it's from our partner Webull. And this is a very reputable stock brokerages. You can get 12 free stocks valued up to $3,000 each, but you have to deposit a penny. So you have to fully open your account and deposit a penny. This is FDI insured. They're fully registered with the government. All you have to do is click the link in the comments or description of this video, get your free stocks, and you can sell them immediately if you'd like. All right, folks, let's jump right into it. So the AARP, first of all, they held a survey and they said, are seniors worried that their benefits are not going to keep up with inflation, right? And let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you worried that your benefits and your COLA increases and your 401k benefits will not keep up with inflation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But essentially, it looks like basically 90% of seniors 50 and older, if you look here on your screen, 90% of people age 50 and older are concerned that their benefits will not be enough to keep up with inflation. Now, 40% of folks worry a lot and 32% worried somewhat, with 27% saying they're kind of in the middle of those two, right? So they have a genuine worry here, right? Not only has inflation been terrible over the last couple of years with the pandemic, these COLA benefits kind of kick in retroactively. So then you're always trailing behind inflation, right? And if you look on your screen here, the Senior Citizens League, they took 10 years of data. And over the last 10 years, from 2010, basically 12 years at this point, from 2010 to 2022, it's been shown that the purchasing power of Social Security benefits has been cut by 50%. That is completely insane, right? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. If you've been on benefits for 10 years, do you agree with the statement? And quite frankly, these are the facts, right? And essentially, the problem here is the things that are hitting seniors most when it comes to inflation, things like energy, gas, utilities, prescription drug prices, things like that, right? Groceries, not sure if I mentioned that, rent. These things are going up more than normal inflation, right? And if you look on your screen here, the out of pocket prescription drug costs have gone up 285% in the last 12 years. Obviously, COLA has not picked up that much, right? And I believe COLA has essentially over the last 12 years increased, yes, 64%. So basically, benefits have increased by 64% over the last 12 years, but the cost of living for seniors has essentially doubled over the last 12 years, right? And essentially, in order to make up for this gap, experts saying that benefits would have to be increased by a little more than $500 per month. This is a massive change that is needed to keep up with the inflation that seniors are facing, right? And the system is broken when we have the cost of living going up by essentially 100% in the last 12 years. And again, this is specifically for seniors who have a larger majority of their costs coming from prescription drug prices, healthcare, grocery bills, right? A bigger percentage of seniors' income goes towards necessities like groceries and utilities and rent and things like that. So, this is why the purchasing power of Social Security benefits have been deteriorating, right? And they say essentially for every $100 you would spend on groceries 12 years ago, to get the same amount of groceries, you you would only get 60% of that essentially, right? So you would have to spend 100 almost $200 to get the same amount that you would have gotten with $100 just 12 years ago, especially given this massive inflation. So, this is why one of the massive changes that we would like to see on this channel and in this community is almost an emergency COLA increase where they bump up COLA maybe like a 10% per year for the next 5 years, right? 10%, 10%, 10%. So then maybe in 5 years, now we've increased it by like 75% or something like that, right? Compounded 10% every single year. And that might sound crazy, initially, but we basically just had an 8 point something percent COLA increase. Folks said that was insane to begin with. So why can't we do this 10% now when we're showing that the data shows that one, the majority of seniors are highly, highly nervous that their benefits won't keep up with inflation. And then two, the facts show that it has not kept up with inflation over the last 10 years, right? So we've got the data. Now, what we need is congressmen like President Biden, Bernie Sanders, these folks that promised to do these things with benefits, like the $200 a month, the increase for widows, the increase across the board at the lower end to keep it above the poverty level. These things need to get done, right? But let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, as far as actual changes that are being proposed in this current spending bill, so it's been released that Congress now has 7 changes that they want to include in a variety of retirement programs to help folks in retirement. So let's take a quick look and see exactly what these are. So, one, require auto enrollment into 401k. So essentially, what this would do is typically now you have to opt into a 401k, right? So if you're working, you want to put money into your retirement program, you basically have to opt in order for that to kick in. Now, what this law would do, they're calling this the Secure 2.0 provision, is it would require employers to set a default contribution rate of at least 3%, but no more than 10% for the employee, plus an automatic escalation of 1% per year. So, on the one hand, this would essentially encourage people to automatically start contributing to their 401ks, right? Obviously, if you did not want to contribute to the 401k, you'd have to go in there and kind of, change that. But it would essentially encourage more folks to start investing for retirement. They're also trying to create another change where they allow companies, your employers, to contribute for student loan payments, right? So right now, the way the 401k works is, let's say you put $100 per month, your employer can match that with an additional $100 per month as well, because you put that $100 in your 401k to begin with. Now, what they want to do here is create a change where they'll still do that. But if you also, let's say you don't have enough income to put into your 401k, but you have student loans, basically they could match your student loan payment, right? And the point of that would be to help people who typically don't have enough money left over because they have a student loan and say, you know what, you're paying your student loan. Now your employer can match that kind of like they would match your original 401k and put that in your 401k, right? Essentially helping people get that match, even if they technically don't have enough money to put it into their 401k, if that makes sense. The third change they're proposing is increasing the age for required minimum distributions. Now, we talked about this in yesterday's show as well. Now, the required minimum distribution essentially says, okay, you've hit a certain age. Currently, it's when you're 72. Now you have to start taking at least some portion of your funds from your 401k. And a lot of seniors don't like doing that, right? So, for example, a lot of seniors don't have enough in their 401k to last the rest of their lives. So, what they want to do is just use their Social Security benefits and then delay using their 401k so that can keep growing and growing and compounding interest, right? And then draw from it later once it's kind of built up to a more substantial amount. But a lot of seniors get upset because once you're 72, you're required to start drawing from that, right? And the reason for that is the government wants their taxes, right? The government's okay with you not paying taxes for a while, but eventually they want that tax money, right, folks? So the good news here for those people that don't want to draw from their 401k is they're probably going to increase that to 75 years as the minimum as the minimum age where you have to start withdrawing from your 401k, right? So that's good news for some folks that don't want to withdraw from their 401k. Now, they also want to include help employees building access to emergency savings. So this is basically another plan that's going to encourage employees to start saving for their emergency fund. Now, they also want to increase the amount that older folks over 50 years old can contribute to their 401ks. Kind of same concept there, right? Help you build up your 401k when you're closer to retirement. And really, those are kind of the main things here, right? They also want to make it easier for part time workers to save as well. But those are really the main things that they're trying to include as far as changes when it comes to retirement programs in this $1.7 trillion spending bill. So let me know your thoughts on those in the comments below, folks. Obviously, those changes that we just spoke about, right? Those changes that have been confirmed that they're trying to include in this $1.7 trillion spending bill, those changes really would not help seniors who are already in retirement that much, right? I mean, if you have a 401k and you're trying not to tap into it, it would help you, right? If you're 72, 73, 74, and you still don't want to tap into your 401k, it would help you as well. If you're over 50 years old and you want to contribute more to your 401k, it would help you as well too, right? But one thing we don't have, changes that we don't have in here, is to account for this depletion in the purchasing power for Social Security benefits, right? And again, if you're just joining today's show, we're talking about the fact that there are some massive changes for retirement programs being put in this $1.7 trillion spending bill, but they're not accounting for the fact that Social Security has lost 40% of its buying power since the year 2000. I mean, those are some changes that need to be accounted for, right? It's not like in the year 2000, folks who were living on benefits were living on the high horse, right? It's not like in 2000, seniors were driving Porsches and living in mansions and, hanging out on yachts because they had so much money. I mean, these retirement benefits were always tight to begin with. Now they're down 40% since the year 2000. They need to include additional changes to bolster Social Security benefits, right? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Basically, because seniors deal with certain factors, certain inflation factors that most other people don't. The cost of living has gone up substantially more for seniors than the general population, right? We talked about prescription drug prices, Medicare Part B premiums, utilities are just a larger percentage of seniors' income, right? So kind of you're spending a larger chunk of your money on utilities, which have gone up massively, right? If you look here, home heating oil has gone up 348%. Prescription drug prices have gone up 285% as far as the out-of-pocket costs. Gasoline has gone up 231%, but COLA has only increased benefits by about 64% in the last 12 years. I mean, that's completely unacceptable. So although we have some changes being proposed for this spending bill, obviously we need more changes, right? And with that said, folks, obviously a lot of people are expecting us to head into a recession. So more than ever, seniors need this help as well. And if you look on your screen here, this is the inflation data, right, over the last few years. And it looks like this could potentially have a bad impact on folks who are on benefits as well, right? So if we look here, inflation peaked, at least so far, at about 8.9% back in June of this year. And now recently it looks as though we've hit a peak, right? Because past that, the inflation numbers have been lower every single month. And November, the numbers just came out at 7.1. So they continue to trend down. So that's good, right? We want prices to go down. We don't want seniors who are on a fixed income, right? If you're on, living off your 401k and your Social Security benefits, we don't want seniors to have these fixed incomes put under pressure, because once you start using your nest egg, right? You start depleting your 401k, then it exponentially degrades faster and faster, right? Because that nest egg doesn't compound as much as it would have because you chipped away at it too quickly, right? Now, this is overall good news, but I'll tell you kind of what could be the bad news here, right? COLA is calculated based off of the last 3 months of every year, right? So that's going to come from, I'm sorry, Q3 of every year, right? So not the last 3 months, but Q3 of every year. So essentially, what could happen here is what tends to happen a lot with Social Security benefits. You kind of have higher inflation here in the beginning of the year, right? So, for example, let's say this keeps trickling down. So let's say it's 6.5%, then 6%, then 5.5%, then 5%, and it keeps slowly trickling down throughout the year. Well, what ends up happening is at the end of the year in Q3, Q4, you're going to have lower inflation, which is what the numbers are going to be based off of, right? But this entire year, seniors will have been dealing with higher inflation numbers, if that makes sense. So if the majority of the year you had inflation of 8%, 7%, 6%, and then at the end of the year, inflation is only, let's say, 3 or 4%, COLA is only going to end up being 3 or 4%. You're only going to get a 3 or 4% COLA increase, but you just dealt with an entire year of having much higher inflation, right? I hope that kind of makes sense. So this downtrend here, although it's generally good news, it could be kind of a catch 22, where if this kind of peaked at the wrong time for seniors, unfortunately the COLA is not going to be as big as it should be. And again, this is why I think one of the changes they should be including, which they did not include in this package, is an emergency COLA increase, right? If they did an emergency 10% COLA increase, even if it's just for 1 year, but ideally like 5 years, that would make up for this potential gap in COLA with inflation peaking earlier in the year. Hope that kind of makes sense. Obviously, we also have Bernie Sanders who wants to include a $1,000 voucher for seniors. We haven't had a ton of traction on that in a while, but we have had more traction on the Social Security Expansion Act, which would add $200 per month for the entire year of 2023. Unfortunately, that's not in the spending package either, but we're hoping Bernie Sanders continues to fight to have that included as well. Now, as far as being in a recession, folks, although we had GDP negative for the first 2 quarters of this year, Q3, we actually had positive GDP, right? So, although experts are thinking we're probably heading towards a recession, as of yet, actually, the most recent quarter shows that we actually had growth. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, the Federal Reserve is probably going to keep raising interest rates. So, if you're out there looking for a home or if you have a lot of credit card debt, it's going to make it harder to pay that debt off. So, just keep that in mind as things go forward. As far as that $1.7 trillion spending bill, as of today's show, it looks like they just approved it in the Senate. They're sending it to the House. So, most likely, they're going to have this done by Thursday night, Friday night, the latest, unless something crazy happens. But we're fully expecting that to go through. And that's including about $40 billion for Ukraine, an additional $40 billion for other countries, and that's on top of the additional $48 billion they already spent on Ukraine in 2023. And I've talked about it on this channel, folks. It's okay to help other countries, but we have to help our country first, right? We have to make sure if we're spending $100 billion on other countries, we have to spend at least the same amount to bolster retirement programs, right? We have to spend at least the same amount to increase, Social Security benefits, to kind of fix the 401k programs, to make sure seniors have enough retirement savings in their 401ks as well. If you guys were wondering, 48 billion is what was spent on Ukraine in 2023. 10 billion was for humanitarian issues, which was like food assistance, healthcare, refugee support, and things like that. 15 billion was financial, basically supporting their economy, like stimulus for their economy, right? So all the talks we had about stimulus over the last 2 years for the U.S. economy, the U.S. spent $15 billion to stimulate Ukraine's economy, and then another 23 billion for military equipment, weapons, and things of that nature, right? Now, this is the craziest part here, right? Zelensky, we're going to play the clip where he addressed Congress, right? It's supposed to be a really powerful speech he gave, so we'll take a look. I think it's important to see it, and it's important to get your thoughts on that as well. And we support Ukraine, and I'm excited to see the speech as well, basically. But, supposedly it's being reported that he told Biden, the funding is great, and they're very appreciative for the funding and, the supplies they're giving them. But immediately after the speech, he told Biden, it's being reported, that they need more, right? So we've got retirement benefits that are not being funded, right? We've got Social Security, SSI, SSDI, 401k programs, right? That are not being properly funded and structured. But then we're giving, 100 billion to other countries, and then they're immediately saying that they need more. That kind of doesn't sit well with me, right? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. And again, it's not to say we shouldn't be giving funding. I wholeheartedly support the cause. I think it's terrible what's happening in Ukraine, but I don't think other countries quite understand what is happening with the retirement crisis in this country, right? When they need 100 billion for this and 50 billion for that, they need it, and I understand they probably need it, but they're not thinking about the fact that, okay, we've got Biden promising to do all these things for benefits, right? Increase taxes on the wealthy, increase benefits for those who are lower income, do this emergency $200 per month, the Social Security Expansion Act that Bernie Sanders wants to do. All of these things across the board, I don't think, other countries understand that these things were promised to seniors and for folks who are either in retirement or close to retirement, right? So although we have these changes being included in this $1.7 trillion package, we don't have enough changes, right? But really quickly, folks, I want to take a look. I want to share with you guys the clip from President Zelensky addressing Congress, addressing the House and the Senate. Let's take a quick look. Let's see what he had to say, right? I think it's pretty powerful. I think it's something that's worth sharing with this community. And then let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below.
Members of Congress.
I think it's too much.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky, President of the Ukraine.
It's too much for me. All this for our great people. Thanks so much. Dear Americans, in all states, cities, and communities, all those who value freedom and justice, who cherish it as strongly as we Ukrainians, in all our cities, in each and every family, I hope my words of respect and gratitude resonate in each American heart. Madam Vice President, I thank you for your efforts in helping Ukraine. Madam Speaker, you bravely visited Ukraine during the full-fledged war. Thank you very much. Great honor. Thank you. Great privilege to be here. Dear members of the Congress, representatives of both parties who also visited Kyiv, esteemed congressmen and senators from both parties who will visit Ukraine, I'm sure, in the future. Dear representatives of diaspora, present in this chamber and spread across the country, dear journalists. It's a great honor for me to be at the US Congress and speak to you and all Americans. Against all odds and doom and gloom scenarios, Ukraine didn't fall. Ukraine is alive and kicking. Thank you. And it gives me good reason to share with you our first joint victory. We defeated Russia in the battle for minds of the world. We have no fear, nor should anyone in the world have it. Ukrainians gained this victory, and it gives us courage, which inspires the entire world. Americans gained this victory, and that's why you have succeeded in uniting the global community to protect freedom and international law. Europeans gained this victory, and that's why Europe is now stronger and more independent than ever. The Russian tyranny has lost control over us. And it will never influence our minds again. Yet, we have to do whatever it takes to ensure that countries of the Global South also gain such victory. I know one more, I think, very important thing. The Russians will stand a chance to be free only when they defeat the Kremlin in their minds. Yet, the battle continues, and we have to defeat the Kremlin on the battlefield. Yes, this battle is not only for the territory, for this or another part of Europe. The battle is not only for life, freedom, and security of Ukrainians or any other nation which Russia attempts to conquer. This struggle will define in what world our children and grandchildren will live, and then their children and grandchildren. It will define whether it will be a democracy of Ukrainians and for Americans for all. This battle cannot be frozen or postponed. It cannot be ignored, hoping that the ocean or something else will provide a protection. From the United States to China, from Europe to Latin America, and from Africa to Australia, the world is too interconnected and interdependent to allow someone to stay aside and at the same time to feel safe when such a battle continues. Our two nations are allies in this battle. And next year will be a turning point. I know it, the point when Ukrainian courage and American resolve must guarantee the future of our common freedom, the freedom of people who stand for their values. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, yesterday before coming here to Washington, D.C., I was at the front line in our Bakhmut, in our stronghold in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbass. The Russian military and mercenaries have been attacking Bakhmut non-stop since May. They have been attacking it day and night, but Bakhmut stands. Last year, 70,000 people lived there in Bakhmut, in this city, and now only few civilians stay. Every inch of that land is soaked in blood. Roaring guns sound every hour. Trenches in the Donbass change hands several times a day in fierce combat and even hand fighting. But the Ukrainian Donbass stands. Russians use everything they have against Bakhmut and our beautiful cities. The occupiers have a significant advantage in artillery. They have an advantage in ammunition. They have much more missiles and planes than we ever had. As it's true, but our defense forces stand. And we all are proud of them. The Russians' tactic is primitive. They burn down and destroy everything they see. They send thugs to the front lines. They send convicts to the war. They threw everything against us, similar to the other tyranny, which is in the Battle of the Bulge. Threw everything it had against the free world, just like the brave American soldiers, which held their lines and fought back Hitler's forces during the Christmas of 1944. Brave Ukrainian soldiers are doing the same to Putin's forces this Christmas. Ukraine holds its lines and will never surrender. So here is the front line. The tyranny which has no lack of cruelty against the lives of free people. And your support is crucial, not just to stand in such fight, but to get to the turning point, to win on the battlefield. We have artillery. Yes. Thank you. We have it. Is it enough? Honestly, not really. To ensure Bakhmut is not just a stronghold that holds back the Russian army, but for the Russian army to completely pull out, more cannons and shells are needed. If so, just like the Battle of Saratoga, the fight for Bakhmut will change the trajectory of our war for independence and for freedom. If your patriots...
All right, folks, just a couple more minutes on Zelensky, then we're going to kind of summarize what he said. Then we'll summarize these changes for retirement programs that are included in this spending bill and kind of what else we would like to see in that bill as well, right? So just let's kind of wrap up here. Let's take a look and see what else Zelensky said. Then we'll summarize everything and we'll summarize what's included and what's not included as far as changes for retirement benefits.
When Russia cannot reach our cities, but its artillery, it tries to destroy them with missile attacks. More than that, Russia found an ally in this genocidal policy, Iran. Iranian deadly drones sent to Russia in hundreds became a threat to our critical infrastructure. That is how one terrorist has found the other. It is just a matter of time when they will strike against your other allies. If we do not stop them now, we must do it. I believe there should be no taboos between us in our alliance. Ukraine never asked the American soldiers to fight on our land instead of us. I assure you that Ukrainian soldiers can perfectly operate American tanks and planes themselves.
Sorry, folks, audio kind of cut off there. But essentially what's going on here is we're talking about the fact that they're including a ton of spending here for Ukraine, and that's great, right? We want a ton of stuff in here for Ukraine. We want to make sure Ukraine gets the help, but at the same time, they're not including enough to bolster retirement programs, right? And we talked about how there are some good changes in this spending bill. They have a ton of changes in there, especially for 401ks. So if you have a good 401k plan already established, or if you're working on building it, there is some good changes in there when it comes to 401k changes, but not nearly enough when it comes to Social Security, SSI, and SSDI. But we have Zelensky, who flew out to DC. He addressed Congress with a really powerful speech. Obviously, it was really emotional, the way he kind of referenced, wars that the U.S. has gone through as well. And it's really connected with a lot of people. And they have about $100 billion earmarked for Ukraine, and that's including 2022 and 2023. So that brings up the question, why are they not spending the same amount for Social Security benefits, 401ks, SSI, SSDI? They should be spending at least the same amount to help the folks in America as well, especially when it comes to funding retirement, right? Now, the craziest part here is, well, first of all, I want to back up. Zelensky, he's very grateful. He said, thank you very much. He said, it's not charity, though. You guys are investing in global democracy, right? Basically saying that if you let one bad guy win, you're basically telling all the bad guys it's okay to do this, right? And attack democracy. So I would agree with that. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. It's just after that, it's being reported that Zelensky actually came out and told President Biden that they need more. And I don't argue that they need more, right? They probably need more. I mean, they're going through some insane stuff out there, especially having to deal with this during the holidays, during Christmas. Now it's the middle of winter and they're getting their power knocked out. I mean, I can't even imagine how insane it is out there, right? But when you see them getting $100 billion and you see them then asking for more, kind of makes you wonder, can we include 100 billion in there for retirement programs as well, right? Can we potentially use it would be about 60 billion to get the $1,000 voucher that Bernie Sanders is trying to include, right? Could we essentially use 100 billion, which is about what it would cost to do the 200 per month boost for 2023, which Bernie Sanders did propose recently under a bill he calls the Social Security Expansion Act, right? Now, if you're just joining today's show, let's quickly recap what we're talking about here, right? So, as far as changes being placed in this $1.7 trillion spending package, they have 7 changes, which mainly affects 401k plans, right? And just to quickly recap, if you're just joining today's show, they're essentially trying to make it so when you have a job, your 401k contributions are automatically defaulted to start contributing. Whereas now you manually have to go in, you have to call, you have to go on the website, whatever it might be, and then request to start putting money into your 401k. They want to basically encourage folks to start saving early in their 401k and make that an automatic contribution. And then you would have to go in there and take it away if you don't want it. They also want to let employers match contributions for your student loan payments. We discussed that in more detail. So if you want more explanation on these things, just go back to the beginning of today's show. They also want to increase the age for required minimum distributions of 401ks, essentially saying you won't have to be forced to subtract or withdraw money from your 401k until you're 75. That's really good for folks that would prefer to use their other savings, like their Social Security, before they draw on their 401k, and a couple of other things as well, like helping folks who work part time save and helping folks save up emergency savings. Now, the reason they need more, right? We need more changes is because as we looked at the Senior Citizens League study, this is one of the biggest advocacy group for seniors. They found that Social Security has lost 40% of its purchasing power over the last 12 years. That is completely insane. And the reason for that is one, COLAs have not been large enough. You all know we had those few years when COLA was zero, right? During the Obama administration. And at the same time, seniors are dealing with inflation, more inflation than the general population. And this is because seniors spend a lot more money on things that have been inflating a lot more than general items, like prescription drug prices have gone up 285%, home heating oil 348%, gasoline in general 231%, homeowners insurance 163%, groceries looks like 150%, and COLAs have only increased Social Security benefits by 64%, right? So with COLA only increasing benefits by 64% over the last 12 years, essentially what it would take to make up for this 40% drop in purchasing power, we would need a $500 per month increase in Social Security benefits and SSDI, right? So this is essentially the change that we would need and that I personally think should be done. Let me know your thoughts. That should be implemented for Social Security benefits. And these changes they put into this spending bill, they're great, but they're mostly for 401ks, right? They're mostly for folks who are in their 50s, maybe 60s, obviously or younger than that. And you're going to have some time to catch up and really snowball that nest egg, right? But if you're already 65, 70 years old, it's basically too late for that. So we need to focus on including changes for Social Security benefits as well. And again, Bernie Sanders has some ideas. I've had some ideas. Bernie Sanders wants to do the $1,000 voucher kind of as a short-term fix, then include a $200 per month boost through 2023. That basically would just be kind of a short-term measure until they completely permanently increase benefits. And that $200 per month boost falls under his bill that he recently proposed in June, the Social Security Expansion Act. Now, my idea, which who am I, right? I'm just some guy with a community on YouTube. But my idea here is to do a 10% COLA for the next 5 to 10 years. And in 5 years, that would basically increase benefits by about 75%. Now, that would get us to where we need to be, actually even further, to make up for this lack of purchasing power over the last 12 years, right? So, although we've had a lot of really, really great changes, we still have a long way to go until we create enough change to fully bolster 401k plans, Roth IRA plans, Social Security benefits, SSI and SSDI. And again, it's just a good reminder that the US is spending hundreds of billions to help other countries. And that's great, right? They need the help. But the folks here in this country, need the help just as much as well, right? So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Guys, I really appreciate you guys being here. Just a quick reminder, if you want to get those free stocks, it's completely free money. Click the link in the description of this video. It's my partner Webull. To get all the stocks, you have to fully open an account and deposit just a single penny. Those stocks could be worth up to $3,000 each, and you can sell the stocks immediately and just take the money out if you'd like. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. I will keep you posted as things develop. And if I don't see you until then, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you on the next show.